Hi kindergartners, I'm back into the classroom today and ready to teach you our core lesson. So today we're going to learn about some different kinds of plants and trees. There are two kinds of trees. One is called deciduous and one is called evergreen. So I'm going to show you this picture so I can explain to you what those are. Okay, so here you'll see, if you look at this picture, you can kind of tell what time of year it is, right? There's snow on the ground. It's warm and sunny, or it's sunny, but it's probably not warm. It's cold, there's snow. So there are two types of trees. One is deciduous and one is evergreen. Deciduous are the trees back here in the background, right here, that do not keep their leaves during winter time. So they shed their leaves when winter time comes around. So we talked about this because at the fall, leaves start to fall off of the trees. Any tree that loses its leaves during fall and into the winter is called deciduous. That's a big word. Let's say it together. Deciduous. That's 4 syllables. Deciduous. The trees that keep their leaves, or like these trees, are called, they keep their needles. These are called evergreen trees. An evergreen tree is always green. Let's say evergreen together. Evergreen. 3 syllables. Okay, so we're going to be talking about deciduous and evergreen trees. Let's see. Okay. This is a picture of an apple tree in the winter. An apple tree sheds or loses its leaves every year, so it is a deciduous tree. Deciduous is a tricky word to say because it has 4 parts. We already said it together, but we're going to say it one more time. Deciduous. Deciduous can actually help you remember that deciduous trees have 4 seasons, or time of the year when they change. Seasons happen in a cycle or circle over and over again. Spring, summer, winter, and fall. Let's start with spring, when new things start growing. In the spring, the apple tree produces new leaves and apple blossoms or flowers. Remember Polly the honeybee? This is the time of the year when she starts taking nectar from inside of the flowers. When she flies from flower to flower, she helps spread the pollen that is going to help the apples grow. In the summer, the apple tree grows many more green leaves. Apples begin to grow out of blossoms. Next season is fall. In the fall, the apples of the apple tree are fully grown and ready to pick. Inside the apples, of course, are seeds, which can be planted in the soil. In a year or so, if the seeds get enough nutrients, water, air, and light, a seedling will emerge from the ground. The seedling may grow into a sapling or a baby tree, and in as few as 4 years may become an apple tree with apples of its own. Also, the leaves on the apple tree start to change to red and yellow, and then they fall off onto the ground. Over time, the leaves on the ground will break down into tiny pieces and become nutrients for the soil. Remember, nutrients are like the food. Here's the apple tree again in the wintertime. Remember, the seasons repeat in a cycle over and over again. The apple tree has bare branches, meaning they are empty and without covering or leaves. That is because plants do not get as much sunlight during the winter as they do during spring or the summer. So let's review. The apple tree is a deciduous tree because it loses its leaves each year. In the spring, an apple tree is nice to look at with its white blossoms. In the summer, you can climb the branches, sit under the shade of its large green leaves. In the fall, you can pick the apples and watch the leaves change colors. And in the winter, you can play in the snow under its bare branches. So this type of tree that loses its leaves during the winter time is called a deciduous. It's a big word. Deciduous. Remember, 4 syllables in deciduous, and you can remember that a deciduous tree changes during all 4 seasons. So that was the hint. 4 syllables, 4 seasons, deciduous. Now we're going to also do the evergreen trees. The trees in this picture, okay, remember, evergreen, deciduous. Now we're going to focus on the evergreen. The trees in this picture are all evergreen trees. Evergreen are similar in some ways to deciduous trees you learned about earlier, but there's also a lot of differences. We use the word evergreen to describe plants that stay leafy and green all year round. Evergreen come in a variety of shapes and sizes, but they all have at least one thing in common. Can you figure out what's in common? Think about the name, evergreen. All evergreen trees are the color green. Are there any evergreen trees like this near your house? Perhaps your family or people in your neighborhood decorate evergreen trees at Christmas or other holidays. People decorate evergreen because they are the most colorful things in nature during the winter months. One type of evergreen tree people often choose to decorate is called the pine tree. Pine trees smell delicious. The leaves of most evergreen trees are called needles. Do you see the needles here? They're just a bunch of long pointy sticks attached to the stem. Pine trees are very common throughout the world. Evergreen trees, like deciduous trees, make food through photosynthesis, which occurs in those teeny tiny needle leaves. So even these leaves or needles, the sun can hit them, and then the plant can use the sun to help make food. Because the needles of an evergreen tree are much smaller than a deciduous tree, it's easier for the evergreen tree to make enough food to keep it alive through the whole year. So that's why an evergreen tree does not ever lose its leaves. Whenever you find pine trees or other types of evergreen trees, you will also see these things. Do you know what these are called? Most evergreen trees are called conifers. Conifers make cones. The cones in this picture are called pine cones. When the cones open on the ground, the seeds fall out and they're spread around by the wind. The first plants you will notice in this picture are the ferns. So that's these ones right here. All these beautiful, pointy little teeny leaves. Ferns are short plants that grow in the woods. If you have good eyes, though, you can see another type of plant in the picture. Look really close. There's a little pine sapling, a baby tree pushing its way through the ferns. If the sapling is tough, as many pine trees are, it will continue to grow until it stands high above the ferns. It may grow big enough to make its own pine cones one day. Okay, this next part is something pretty cool. Every year, a tree adds a new layer of wood. This new layer forms what is called a growth ring. When you cut down a tree, you can see the growth rings. You can tell exactly how old the tree is by counting the rings. So when you cut a tree down, you can see all these rings. It gets bigger and bigger. That tells you how old the tree is. So this tree must be pretty old because there's a lot of rings, starting in the center, moving out towards the outside of the tree. This tree was a little more than 50 years old, which is actually pretty young for a tree. If it hadn't been cut down, this tree might have lived to have 100 or more rings. Remember, evergreen trees and deciduous trees are 2 main types of trees found in the world, and they both are very important to people and nature. Next time you see a tree, try to figure out whether it is evergreen or deciduous. The leaves might be the first thing to give you a clue. Okay, that was a lot of facts and information about trees, deciduous, and evergreen. I'm going to also send you a little link that you can watch that will show you more cool facts about trees. Maybe when you go outside today or tomorrow or over the next couple days, take a look at the trees around just to see if you can notice anything cool about them. Also, I noticed when I came into school today that there's tulips growing out in the front. They're so cute and pretty. Maybe things are growing around at your house because we have officially moved into spring, which I need to change on my calendar because when we were here last, the season was winter. Now it's spring. Spring means that everything's growing, new things, and it's a nice time of year. All right, there you go. We'll do some more with core and plants tomorrow.